Hi, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Dave, and we're the IB English guys. Welcome to this video to give you a pep talk for the paper 2 and give you some necessary steps.
We know this is a comparative beast. A lot of you are worried about this paper. There's no need to be worried. We're going to give you some strategies and tips that are really going to help you out today.
Yeah, let's start with the basics. Let's remember, this is a comparative essay by definition. It is the same task for all courses, literature, language and literature, HL, SL. It is the same. It's an hour and 45 minutes with 5 minutes of reading time.
That's right. Now that we understand the basics, we'll talk briefly about the criteria. Criterion A is understanding and interpretation. This is where you're going to drop into key moments of the text. You're going to use references to the text. And you're going to do your best interpretation with respect to your chosen question. You got to make sure you maintain that focus.
And compare similarities and differences. Criterion B is analysis and evaluation. This is where we're going to talk about those broad authorial choices that the authors use. Put the author in the driver's seat, and we need to compare author choices. That's important. That's criterion B, also 10 points.
Criterion C, focus and organization, is worth 5 points. This is where you want to make sure you are deeply focused on your chosen question. That means you're using the keywords in the topic sentences, you're using those keywords scattered throughout, and you're making sure that you're balanced between both texts that you're working on. And you want to make sure you have a good, organized paper.
Oh, great. Good balance. I'm glad you mentioned that word. Then we think about language. We want to be scholars. We want to be good writers. We want to use effective vocabulary, and that's important, and grammatical accuracy. Okay, now the reason we made this video is we want to offer you some steps. The steps for writing the paper 2. Let's first talk about that 5 minutes of reading time. We like the acronym SCAN. The first thing we do is we survey those 4 questions and we scan through them and understand them. Then we need to consider which text fits which question and start to think about where our strengths might lie.
The A stands for analyze. This is where you're going to really scrutinize and analyze all the words of those questions. Make sure you understand the demands of the question. You want to look at conjunctions. Are they asking and? Are they asking or? Really read carefully at this point. And then once you've done that, the N stands for narrow. You're going to narrow down which of the 4 questions you want to write on, thinking about the text that you've studied and prepared for this assessment.
Yeah, make use of that reading time. Okay, now we've chosen our question. So the reading time's over and the person says, pick up your pen. Now we need to break down the question. We need to slow down. We need to think about the terms, define the terms of the question, understand what the question is asking. Then we need to ask questions of the question. Generate some questions that get you thinking about the question in some different ways, and that will really help you really think comparatively.
Once you've done that rich comparative thinking, it's time to write down your thesis. Again, the thesis should be comparative in nature as well. We recommend for our students that they make this into 2 sentences. While both texts both have X, blah, blah, blah. Text A looks at it this way, text B looks at it that way. So you're kind of looking at similarities and differences at the same time.
Yeah, practice writing those thesis statements. That will really give you confidence. Then we need to write our roadmap. We need to have a rudimentary outline. We need to think comparatively. We need to write down those comparative points. Make sure that the points are distinct points and they help to answer the question. We write that outline. That's going to help us. We can also think about which examples or moments we want to use for each of one of those comparative points. That will help.
Yeah, once you've written that outline, you're going to use that outline to write your response. Of course, you want to start with the introduction. You're going to define any key terms that you need to for the given question that you've selected. Then you're going to briefly introduce both texts in relation to that question. And then you're going to end with that rich, strong comparative thesis.
Yeah, don't write your introduction too long. Don't make it too long. It should take you about 5 or 10 minutes. Really make sure it's a strong handshake and really gets off to a good start. Then we have our body paragraphs. This is where we make our money. Every topic sentence needs to have the language of the question, needs to have that rich comparative point we're trying to illustrate. We want to drop the anchor and make sure we're discussing critical moments and details from the text that help to answer that question. As we do that, keep in mind we need to talk about those broad authorial choices and to try to think comparatively. It's a lot of things to do. If you keep those things in mind, that will really help.
Yeah, once you've written those rich body paragraphs, you're going to move on to the conclusion. We recommend restating that thesis in a new way. Again, make sure that you have focus on that guiding question. Use the keywords of the guiding question in that restating. And then you're going to go ahead and synthesize your key points, thinking about what further implications, what further conclusions could be drawn. And then you're going to end with a final thought that's insightful. And we like to say it ends with a flourish.
Yeah. And lastly, if you have time, and you should have a little bit of time to do this, it's important to proofread. Look over your writing, look over how you've arranged the pages and make sure that it's clear. then you have a chance maybe to look at a little bit of grammatical accuracy. That can really help sort of polish things up. So a few things to remember: show knowledge, answer the question, really think about that. And we want to discuss authorial choices and craft.
Yeah, make sure you maintain that rich focus on the guiding question. Use your best language when you're writing. Be precise with your vocabulary, be precise with your grammar, and do your best. You've studied for this exam. You know these texts well. You're ready to do well. Folks, we wish you the best of luck on your paper too. Stay with IB English, guys. Stay with the channel, and we'll continue guiding you to success.
Good luck, you guys.